Now, do you think you can get a Porsche for 9,500 bucks? Well, this guy did. It's actually in pretty good shape because he's the lucky third owner, lucky three here. He only had to pay 9,500 bucks. It's in excellent shape. It's not extremely high mileage. He used his head when he bought a Porsche. And yes, it's his toy. He puts like 2,000 miles or something a year on it. That's the kind of toy it is. And for that price for a toy like this, hey, you can have a lot of fun. It's a 6-speed standard. That's what these things were meant for. I even had a German customer once. He bought one and he said, I did not get radio either. I went to hear the car. It's a driver's car. It's a fun car to drive around. Believe me, if you ever drive one of these with an automatic transmission, you'll wonder why they even made the things. Plus, they cost an absolute fortune to fix when they break down. I had a customer with one, he thought he got a great deal. He said, I only paid $14,000. Then about 6 months later, the automatic transmission went out and he was now in the hole. And he ended up selling it to a German guy who fixed it and sold it to somebody else. The standard transmission's pretty bulletproof on these things. He knew the problems that the engines had. He spent $3,000 having the engine modified. Now, there's no denying these are beautiful cars. The problem is they're extremely expensive, and if they get too old, they're extremely expensive to repair. But an advantage of a little toy like this is that's exactly what it's been. He's the third owner. They had it as a toy too, and they were good boys, and they took care of their toy. You have to understand that you need a mechanic like me to check one out before you buy it. You buy one sight unseen, you're a fool. But you get one that's in shape like this particular one is, you can get a really good deal for a fun toy. If you're putting 2,000 miles on it a year, let's face it, it's almost depreciated down to nothing. The original owner paid anywhere between $60,000 and $70,000 for it. It's still in excellent shape. You like standard transmissions. It's got a beautiful convertible top that comes up and down easily. These things are fascinating pieces of machinery if you get the right one at the right price. Now, this thing doesn't even come out in the winter. It's hidden away in a garage. That's what you do with these things. You know? Although I do have to say, if you get a perfectly balanced mid-engine car like this with rear-wheel drive, it'll go in the snow. I've never actually seen one with snow tires on it, but you know, they're rather low to the ground. You're gonna have to have the road plowed to some extent, but they handle quite well. When I was a kid, we drove Volkswagens around all the time in the snow back in New York. And they were great driving in the snow with the engine in the back and tires on the bottom. We didn't put snow tires on them either. And the owner of this, his original car, was a 70s Beetle. He drove it all over the place. He didn't have snow tires on it either. He kind of graduated now. It's got a lot more class than a Volkswagen Beetle. They're a lot of fun if you go through the right way of buying them. And since he was extremely intelligent, he spent the $3,000, like I said, on the engine to upgrade it, so he won't have any engine problems. So he can go on it pretty hard when he wants to, and doesn't have to worry about the one design flaw. If you are looking at these, look closely at whatever year you're buying and find the flaws and either see if they've been fixed or fix them yourself. Then you don't have to deal with a problem that you should have learned before you bought the car. Now I know the real Porsche guys are all, oh, you gotta get a 911 air-cooled engine if you want a real Porsche. Well, if you know anything about the Germans, they actually wanted to retire the air-cooled engines because of the old-fashioned design. And they didn't, mainly because Americans are nuts about them. If you get the water-cooled designs, believe me, they will last a lot longer. You don't have to worry when you're stuck in traffic about your engine overheating. These cars don't have that problem whatsoever. They got radiators all over the place. As long as you maintain them, they're perfectly safe to drive slow or fast, however you want to drive them. This is a two-seater sports car, and that's what it was meant for. I have to say, personally, when I see those Porsche SUVs, it makes me cringe. It's like, hey, that's not what the brand was about. Turning them into SUVs with 4 doors, and there's a family going down the road. And to me, it has nothing to do with Porsche itself. It's just another marketing scheme, just like Jeep selling the Jeep Renegade that's really just a 4-wheel drive Fiat 500. Has nothing to do with Jeep, nothing to do with the history of the company, but this is a real Porsche. Now, as you get older, it really helps if you have a friend who's a mechanic. If you remember the video I did a few weeks ago about the guy who got the really nice Audi that had the big 6-cylinder diesel engine. The only reason he bought it was because his high school friend was an Audi mechanic and they only charged him $50 an hour to work on it. And of course, Volkswagen owns Porsche and Audi. They have for a really long time. They share all the technology, and yes, they're super expensive to work on if something serious breaks on them. But at the same time, if you're not a maniac and don't redline them all the time, they're pretty solid build. I had a customer in Houston, and his engine only started to wear out really badly when he had like 180,000 miles on it, and he didn't really care because he bought it used from his brother anyway. So let's take it for a spin. Now, of course, it's a nice day. It's an open roadster. That's what these things are made for. For a tiny little roadster, let me tell you something. This thing actually rides quite well on the bumps. This has the 3.2 liter because it's the S, so it's got 50 extra horsepower. And I'll tell you, this thing, it's a smaller car, but it rides infinitely smoother than that Model Y Tesla that I tried out last month. And they have the ride rather honed down. So, here we go with what's left of this thing. Very smooth acceleration. And truth be told, this is a Rhode Island vehicle which has never been exposed to the salt. It's garaged away in the winter. That's what you want to do with one of these things. If you remember the old Beetles, man, they rusted out like nothing. Realize this guy is smart. People think, oh, you know, these rich guys drive around in Porsches. He just wanted a fun toy. He's looking for his regular car. He's looking for a Honda. But like I've warned you already during this pandemic, he found out that he can't get a good deal on the Honda Pilot he wants because they have bidding wars. When they come in, they say, well, we got one, come on in, and then they see who's going to pay the most for the car. They wouldn't even give him a price on one. They said, we got them coming in, you know, when they're in, come and bid. Well, he'll be driving this and this other car around for a while until things settle down. He found this at a good time, got it for a good price, got himself a fun little toy. But he also understands cars. He didn't just go out and buy one like some of my customers in the past did and thought, I got a great deal on a Porsche. I said, you thought you did. You actually got a car that's not in that good shape. This thing is in excellent shape, and as he told me, you gotta maintain these Porsches. They got a oil separator and the PC system. If you don't change that every so often, it'll start burning oil and start smoking. It's hard to get to, not that expensive of a part, but he does all that. He researched it. How does he do it? He watches YouTube videos. He learned on a 70 Beetle, so he understands cars. If you understand enough about cars, you can pick any car as long as you find one that's in decent shape to start out with, and you understand the flaws and understand getting rid of those flaws. Or if you've got something that is really flawed a certain year, you just don't buy the thing. You stay away in the first place. It's only got 86,000 miles on it. It's still got a lot of life in it. But on the other hand, it's not like a Toyota or Honda. You don't just buy it and forget it and change the oil every once in a while. I had a customer with a Toyota. He didn't change the oil until it had 90,000 miles on it. Not even once, and it was still running. These, you can't do that. You got to take care of them. But if you're the type of person that's hands-on, you like messing around with something, it'll give you a fun thing to fool around with. And you might laugh at this one, but they're not extremely powerful cars. He only pays $350 a year insuring this thing. He doesn't have collision or anything, but he's an adult, he's not a young kid. $350 to insure a Porsche. Not that bad of a deal, really. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the size. It's an awful small car. How much damage can it do? Just like a motorcycle. I pay $90 a year for my Triumph motorcycle insurance. Hey, you're gonna damage yourself, but you really can't do all that much damage with a motorcycle, you know? Maybe you could run into a deer or something and hurt the deer, but these things are so small to their advantage. Being that low to the ground and designed this well, these things are really hard to flip over, so you're pretty safe inside. So if you're looking for a fun toy and you know cars, and maybe you know Porsche mechanic too, these things can be an awful lot of fun if you pick the right one and maintain it. So here you have it, Scotty and a Porsche that he doesn't hate. Will miracles never cease? You get anything at a good enough price that's still in good shape, just realize somebody at some point in time paid a heck of a lot more money than he did for it, and it still runs about exactly the same as it did the day it came off the German floor. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.